Welcome folks to beautiful West Auckland here in New Zealand. Here today to talk about 5 good and 5 bad things about living in New Zealand. Recently did a video on the same topic about China because I used to live in China for about 7 years and have been back numerous times on holiday. I shared my thoughts on some good things and some bad things about living in China. Got some kind of interesting feedback from a few people, mostly pretty cool. A few people a little bit disgruntled, but hey, I may end up disgruntling a few New Zealanders with this one, but let's talk about 5 good things and 5 bad things about living in New Zealand. I should say off the bat, obviously, I am a Kiwi, born and raised, love New Zealand. I'm an Aucklander, but I have traveled other parts of New Zealand as well. I don't just live here in this kind of Auckland bubble. If I didn't love New Zealand, I wouldn't stay here. I'd probably be off in Australia like many of my countrymen, but New Zealand is a great place. I love New Zealand, but nowhere is perfect. Obviously, it's coming through my lens as a guy who is from New Zealand, but again from Auckland, which is a different experience from other parts of the country, and as a guy who spent 7 years in China, so that's often kind of my point of comparison. Very different places. Now, if we start with the bad things, number one thing about New Zealand, which is kind of, it can be seen as a good thing, but it is also a bad thing, is the fact that we are very geographically isolated. We are far away from the rest of the world. You are looking at 3 hours just to get to Australia on a plane, so it's not convenient to travel to or from New Zealand. Often there's not direct flights, you end up having to transfer, and just the travel time and the travel cost is going to be high. It is not like Europe where you can just jump on a plane or a train and be in a different country at the drop of a hat. We are far away from everybody else, and that also means if you want to buy stuff and get it shipped to New Zealand, often places don't ship to New Zealand, and if they do ship to New Zealand, often the shipping price can be sometimes so high that it's not worth getting. It could even be higher than the thing you are looking to buy. So New Zealand, we're really far away from the rest of the world. If you've got family dramas you want to get away from and nobody lives in New Zealand, maybe New Zealand's perfect for you. But yeah, if you're looking to travel, New Zealand's far away. That's just a geographic fact. Number 2 things about New Zealand, we are a small country and the pace of life is slow, which can be seen as a positive again, but it can also be seen as a negative. The fact that we are small means there are a lot fewer opportunities in a number of fields compared to other places. A lot of Kiwis end up leaving New Zealand for work. Australia is the #1 destination, but certainly not exclusively Australia. But because we're a small country, there's some jobs which you just can't get here, and if you can get them, the opportunities may be fewer and the pay may be lower. So that just goes down to the fact that we are a small country. And also the pace of life is slow. Everything moves slowly in New Zealand. Do you want to get a doctor's appointment? It's probably going to be not instantaneous. Do you want to open a bank account? Well, you're going to need to contact the bank and make an appointment a few days in advance. You can't just drop down to the bank and open an account at the drop of a hat. Is some new technology rolling out to the rest of the world? It's probably going to come to New Zealand after it's come to everybody else. So yeah, that's just one of the facts of life about living in New Zealand. Everything is a bit slower. If you enjoy a slow-paced life, this is certainly a place for you. But if you want to be with the kind of hustle and bustle, this is probably not the right one. Number 3. You need a car. Public transport in New Zealand is genuinely pretty poor. The bus system, at least here in Auckland, we have one. You can go to the main city centre, but if you wanted to go from suburb to suburb, you're looking to probably have to transfer. It's going to be expensive. The waiting time for your public transport is going to be pretty high. It's just expensive, unreliable, and inconvenient compared to many other places in the world. New Zealand is basically set up on the expectation that most people have a car. If you live in downtown Auckland, you can probably get away with not having a car. But if you get invited to a party at your friend's house and they live north, south, east, or west, it's not going to be that convenient for you to get there. So the public transport situation is just not very good. And even like the intercity stuff, most people again are probably going to drive. New Zealand's not that big. You can drive to most places. Like if you compare the driving times from like a little country like New Zealand compared to like Canada or Australia or China or something like that, where the driving time is horrendously high, New Zealand's only a small country, so you can get around in not too much time, but you need a car. You can't rely on the public transport. It is just genuinely not very good. Number 4 things about New Zealand, there's not that much going on. Some people come to New Zealand and end up describing it as a bit boring. If you are especially looking for things like nightlife, If you want to, go out to a club and a bar on a Tuesday night, you're probably out of luck because there's not that much going on. Things close pretty early. I remember coming back from China after living there 7 years to Auckland's main shopping street downtown. I went to try and buy a coffee at 4 o'clock only to be told, nah, we're closing now. I was blown away by that fact. It was kind of reverse culture shock. We are used to kind of closing up shop 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. A lot of businesses, they are calling it quits. People aren't out at night. Like Friday and Saturday nights, sure, you can find clubs and find bars. Things will be open. But for the most part, nighttime is for going home and watching TV or whatever people do at home. There's not really that much of a kind of night culture here in New Zealand. There will be some artists which come to New Zealand. If they're going to perform shows, they probably come to Auckland. They're probably not going to do full New Zealand tours, at least like kind of top tier musicians and bands and whatnot. Some won't even come to New Zealand because it's just not worth the time and effort for them to come down all this way. So yeah, in terms of the shopping scene, in terms of the nightlife, New Zealand's just not got that much going on. It's not one of the reasons you would move to New Zealand. Now, number 5 is maybe one that a lot of Kiwis don't want to talk about too much, but we certainly do have it, and it's not unique to New Zealand, but certain prejudices. Sometimes these are racial prejudices. I've had random people say some pretty racist stuff to me, just kind of randomly. An old lady once asked me, how many white faces do you see on the bus? I don't know, lady, I wasn't counting. One guy told me that the Blues rugby team, which is my local rugby team, were not more successful because they didn't have enough white players on them. That's a pretty random thing to say to someone you just met. I went to a funeral and one of my distant relatives started complaining about how the Chinese were the ones buying up all the houses here in Auckland. That's just kind of random stuff. Now, admittedly, all those people that spoke to me about these things were at least kind of 20 years my senior. So I kind of hope in my heart of hearts that kind of stuff is going out the door. But I mean, if you're an immigrant to New Zealand, your experience is definitely going to be different depending on which part of the world you're from. If you're an immigrant to New Zealand from the UK, your work experience is going to be valued a lot higher than, for example, someone from India. If you had five years experience working as like an IT specialist in India and you apply for a job in New Zealand, you're probably looking at entry-level jobs because people are going to disregard your India experience as kind of, it just doesn't count. You need New Zealand experience. Whereas if you had experience in the UK, that experience is fine. Now, in some areas, there may be reasons for why that work experience is genuinely valued more. Like some of the jobs I'm talking about were just like general IT level jobs, which don't require any special qualifications. But I had people working with me who were overqualified for their jobs, but just happened to have experience in places like India or the Philippines or China, that kind of thing. Experience is just not valued as highly. Now, that's the bad stuff. What about the good stuff? I feel like the good stuff outweighs the bad stuff. Number 1, New Zealand is pretty quiet and pretty chill. That's kind of goes against what I said about it being kind of small and slow. That's where it kind of flips for being a positive. Like, I am just sitting here, there is nobody around. Like, I can get up, walk, there's not a soul. There's nobody here. This is lovely. If you want to get some time for yourself, if you want to get away from the hustle and bustle, if you want to get away from people, like I'm in Auckland, this is the biggest city in the country, and this spot did not take me long to get to. So it is very easy to get away from that kind of people pressure. There's no crowds. If you want to go to a beach and find a spot away from other people, you can find it. The beach is going to be just down the road because we've got coastline everywhere. And I feel like the work-life balance is pretty good. Most jobs are not going to require you to do overtime. If you are given the option of doing overtime, you will get paid probably time and a half to do that overtime. You're going to get 5 weeks of annual leave. In most places, no one's really going to care how you dress. You can be very casual. It's a very chill lifestyle. Getting away from big city life, getting away from hustle and bustle is definitely one of the big positives. Now, to go with that, point 2, I think New Zealand is great for kids, especially young kids. Kids, like, there's playgrounds, parks, nature everywhere for kids to get out and play. Schools do not pressurize kids into just studying all day long. My kid's school, primary school, doesn't even give homework. You could argue, oh, maybe we need to do more for our kids. Our kids are falling behind, but kids are not given a heck of a lot of pressure from their school environment. They're encouraged to play sports. They're encouraged to become kind of more well-rounded individuals, able to have, I feel, a kind of proper childhood here in New Zealand. You want to play, go play. You want to go see the Santa Parade, go see the Santa Parade. You want to do rugby, you want to do soccer, you want to do cricket, do all these things. Go do dancing. Point number 3, it kind of links with the other points I've mentioned, but nature, and to a degree, even the weather here in New Zealand is pretty nice. Now, it does rain, and you need sunblock in summer, that is for sure, because it's really easy to get sunburnt, but we don't have scorching summers. The South Island gets pretty cold in winter, but I don't feel like there's any season in New Zealand where I would be like, don't come to New Zealand in that season, because it's not unbearable. It's pretty temperate for the most part. As I said, we get a bit of rain, bring an umbrella, but most times of the year it's not too bad. Spring is nice, maybe not if you get hay fever. You know, summer, like I mentioned, apart from needing sunblock, it's pretty nice, doesn't get stupidly hot. Winter rains a fair bit. Autumn's beautiful. And if you like getting outdoors, if you like hunting, if you like fishing, if you like camping, if you like hiking, if you like surfing, New Zealand's got all of that, and not far. Again, it goes back to the fact that we are not that big and we don't have that many people. If you want to get out to those kind of natural places, you've got them in abundance. The air is clean, there's no poisonous snakes, there's no bears. Yeah, getting out to nature in New Zealand is pretty low stress, pretty easy, pretty enjoyable. Now, the 4th point, New Zealand is a proper melting pot of different cultures, which gives you, I feel like, a better kind of understanding of other people's, and exposes you to so much more of the world without having to leave the country, because we are so far away from everybody else. Goes back to the tangata whenua, the kind of the first people to call New Zealand home, the Māori people. Their culture, it embraces the rest of New Zealand culture, I think, in ways that many of us don't even see. Followed by Europeans who came to New Zealand in the kind of 1800s, 1900s. We've had Polynesian immigration from places like Tonga and Samoa. We've had Fiji, we've had the Cook Islands. Then there's been a lot of Asian immigration from like of China, from India, from the Philippines. There's been more recent European immigration. There's loads of South Africans here. Bunches more that I haven't mentioned. New Zealand is a proper melting pot of different cultures. If you want to go down the road and get food from any of these different cultures, you can find it. If you want to get chop suey, if you want to get curry, if you want to get stir fry, you can find it. If you want to get a hangi, there is food of all these different cultures available. There's all kinds of cultural like celebrations, be it Diwali, be it like Chinese New Year, be it Matariki. There's all kinds of different cultures celebrated and embraced here in New Zealand, which I think is a really special thing. Again, I'm not saying we are the only place which is a proper melting pot, but it is an aspect of New Zealand life which I think is pretty awesome. Last one, number 5, I genuinely think New Zealand people are pretty friendly. Obviously there's exceptions. There are people who can be pricks, especially on the roads. I feel like we're not the best drivers, and we let our driving, at least in Auckland, get us pretty grumpy, but for the most part, New Zealanders are pretty nice. I've stopped and asked people for directions, even though they know I'm from Auckland, and Auckland is not the most popular place in New Zealand. People bend over backwards to kind of help me get where I'm going. I know all my neighbors. If my neighbors have got like extra fruit from like their feijoa trees or lemon trees, they will bring me their fruit. They get something which they think my kids might like, they will just give it to me. They go fishing, they have some extra, they will give me something. I will, return those favors. It's a real kind of community, really friendly people, really kind of tight-knit group. And yeah, that really feels like home. So I think New Zealanders, again, for the most part, not exclusively, but for the most part, we are pretty friendly folks. Well, that's it, folks. 5 things about New Zealand, good and bad. I will be back to China in future videos. That is kind of what this channel is largely about. If you want to see a Kiwi traveling around China, talking to some people, often in Chinese, trying different foods, seeing some kind of lesser known spots. Check out some of the other videos on this channel. This kind of video is a bit of an exception rather than the rule. But if I can talk about the good and bad about China, why not the same about New Zealand, right? You guys take care. Talk to you again soon.